The landscape of modern celebrity is built on a delicate illusion of absolute invincibility, where the brightest stars are expected to remain entirely untouched by the gravity of the real world. We watch them ascend to incredible heights, tracking their global achievements, listening to their anthems of total empowerment, and observing their glamorous lives through the polished lens of digital platforms. For a long time, it seemed as though the industry had perfected a formula for creating figures who could effortlessly weather any storm, radiating an unshakable sense of joy and self-confidence that millions of fans used as a shield in their own daily lives. Yet, beneath the vibrant stage lights, the elaborate production numbers, and the carefully structured public relations strategies lies a much more fragile reality. The human cost of maintaining a public persona under a relentless global microscope is a story that is rarely told in its entirety, as the machinery of fame usually demands a seamless front of triumph and happiness at all times. When that facade begins to show even the slightest fracture, the reaction from the public is often swift, judgmental, and intensely critical, demonstrating how quickly a supportive audience can turn into a collective of skeptics. It is within this complicated cultural intersection of public expectation and private vulnerability that we find ourselves witnessing one of the most compelling and dramatic shifts in recent pop music history. A narrative that was once defined by an unprecedented, meteoric rise to the very pinnacle of global stardom is now transforming into a deeply personal, intense examination of what happens when the applause fades and the numbers no longer align with expectations. To fully comprehend the weight of this current moment and to explore the fascinating layers of an industry that can celebrate an artist one day and seemingly look away the next, we invite you to stay with us through every chapter of this unfolding story. If you find these deep dives into the shifting dynamics of pop culture and media narratives meaningful, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on notifications so you never miss our detailed breakdowns of the events shaping the entertainment world today. Your support allows us to continue bringing you balanced, comprehensive stories that look far beyond the surface level of simple headlines. The modern music industry is an unforgiving ecosystem where the distance between overwhelming adoration and profound isolation can shrink in the blink of an eye, leaving even the most celebrated creators to navigate an incredibly treacherous path. For several years, a dominant force in the global music scene captured the hearts of millions with a message that felt completely revolutionary, combining immense musical talent with an infectious celebration of identity and inner strength. This individual did not just release songs, they created cultural movements that resonated deeply across generations, building an empire on the foundation of unapologetic joy and collective healing. The melodies were ubiquitous, filling the airwaves, dominating every major streaming playlist, and soundtracking major motion pictures and international ad campaigns. It felt like an era of absolute dominance, a time when every single release was guaranteed to achieve multi-platinum status and rewrite the record books. The relationship between this superstar and the public appeared to be symbiotic, built on a shared understanding of overcoming adversity and stepping boldly into the light. However, the entertainment landscape is notoriously fickle, and the structures that elevate an artist to the status of an icon are often the very same ones that amplify their most challenging moments. Behind the scenes, the momentum that once felt completely unstoppable began to encounter significant friction as complex legal challenges, internal industry shifts, and a rapidly changing cultural climate started to alter the trajectory of a once flawless career. As the months rolled by, the grand rollouts and high-profile television appearances that used to generate immense excitement began to yield vastly different results, signaling a quiet but unmistakable shift in how the world was engaging with the music. It became increasingly clear that the path forward would not be a simple continuation of past triumphs, but rather a complex, emotionally taxing journey of reinvention and confrontation with a new reality. When a highly anticipated creative project finally arrived after a long period of anticipation, it did not met with the familiar wave of commercial triumph, but instead triggered a series of events that forced a profound reckoning. The numbers, which had once been a source of immense pride and validation, suddenly told a very different story, one that contrasted sharply with the artistic confidence invested in the work. In the immediate aftermath of these disappointing reports, the public witnessed a series of highly visible social media interactions that seemed to project a sense of total indifference, as if the creator remained entirely unbothered by the unfolding situation. This display of resilience, however, immediately drew a wave of skeptical commentary from onlookers who questioned the authenticity of the performance, pointing out the stark contrast between the joyful presentation and the harsh reality of the industry data. This fascinating tension between the public mask of unbothered confidence and the deep internal pain of a creative setback forms the opening chapter of a profound emotional journey. It reveals an artist caught between the traditional demands of a high-stakes industry and a powerful, growing desire to speak with absolute honesty about the heavy emotional toll of a commercial disappointment. The unexpected commercial stagnation of an artist who once commanded the absolute center of global pop culture requires a careful examination of the specific events that reshaped her career over the last few years. On June 5th, Lizzo released her highly anticipated studio album, boldly titled Bitch, which marked her very first full-length musical effort since 2022. This launch was meant to be a grand triumphant return, a definitive creative statement intended to reclaim her position at the top of the music charts and remind the world of her undeniable hit-making capabilities. However, this release did not happen in a vacuum. Instead, it arrived under the heavy, lingering shadow of a massive public controversy that completely altered the trajectory of her career. The roots of this shift trace back to 2023, a turbulent year when 3 of her former backup dancers filed a groundbreaking lawsuit against Lizzo, her overarching production company, and her specific dance captain. The legal filing sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, containing severe and deeply damaging allegations that included sexual harassment, religious discrimination, racial discrimination, and the deliberate creation of an intensely hostile work environment. For an artist whose entire global brand was meticulously built on the foundational pillars of inclusivity, kindness, radical self-love, and unwavering support for marginalized communities, these specific accusations felt completely catastrophic. Lizzo immediately and firmly denied all the allegations, releasing statements to defend her character and her professional conduct. But the narrative in the public sphere had already begun to shift dramatically. The intense media scrutiny and the polarized public reaction created a profound ideological fracture between the star and her once devoted audience, causing her career to lose its historic, unprecedented momentum with astonishing speed. The first clear signs of this widespread commercial cooling became evident in 2025 with the release of her mixtape, titled My Myphus Hurts from Smiling. Despite her substantial name recognition, the project arrived to very little fanfare, completely failing to generate the massive cultural conversation or streaming numbers that had once defined her work. As the rollout for the new album Bitch began to accelerate, the warning signs grew even more pronounced as the project's 2 primary lead singles, Don't Make Me Love You and the title track Bitch, completely failed to make an impression on the broader musical landscape. In a stunning turn of events for a hitmaker who used to dominate the airwaves, both tracks completely failed to crack the prestigious Billboard Hot 100 chart, leaving industry insiders and fans wondering if the magic formula had been lost. Unfortunately, the arrival of the full album would only confirm these growing fears, proving to be a historical and deeply disappointing commercial low point. The album completely failed to reach the Billboard 200 chart entirely, and a devastating report published by Rolling Stone magazine on a Tuesday revealed the brutal reality of the launch, confirming that Bitch had managed to sell a meager 2,600 copies in its entire first week across the United States. Shortly after these incredibly low sales figures became public knowledge, Lizzo took to the popular social media platform TikTok, posting a video of herself dancing energetically in her living room to an album track titled Sexy Ladies. The video was accompanied by a direct caption that read, "Imagine thinking I crashed out and I am at home just," suggesting that she was entirely unaffected by the commercial failure and was simply enjoying her life and her music in private. However, the internet audience was not willing to accept this display at face value, and the video immediately sparked an absolute avalanche of negative and highly critical reactions from viewers who perceived the post as an incredibly forced attempt to look entirely unbothered by her career decline. The comment section under the video quickly transformed into a harsh public forum where people openly dissected her psychological state and her promotional strategy. One user wrote, "Not you trying to convince us you are unbothered," while another sharply added, "Now you trying way too hard." The skepticism continued to mount as another individual asked, "Is this a dance to keep from crying?" And a separate viewer bluntly commented, "Nah, this ain't it," accompanied by a crying emoji. As it would later turn out, this cheerful, highly animated video did not reflect the reality of how Lizzo was actually feeling behind closed doors during this immense professional crisis. The elaborate facade of internet confidence completely dissolved during her highly anticipated appearance on the popular Protopop podcast, an interview space known for diving deep beneath standard public relations talking points. When the host directly asked Lizzo for the non-PR answer regarding how she was truly coping with the situation, the superstar chose to drop her guard completely, delivering an incredibly raw, honest, and vulnerable confession about her mental state. Lizzo admitted that the process of dropping the album had affected her deeply, stating that she took the commercial performance to heart really heavily. She confessed that this was the absolute non-PR answer, admitting openly that she had hurt her own feelings and had spent several days feeling incredibly stressed and profoundly sad. She explained her internal confusion, noting that she found herself questioning the reality of the situation because she genuinely believed that the songs on Bitch represented some of the absolute best work she had ever produced in her life. This painful realization forced her to confront a much larger and more terrifying truth about the state of the modern entertainment landscape. Lizzo explained that she had to quickly come to terms with the fact that the entire music industry had changed completely in the last 3 years, emphasizing that this was a critical conversation that creators and audiences desperately need to have. She specifically pointed to the rapidly evolving radio aspect of the business, noting that she had previously faced immense internal pressure and criticism regarding radio performance, but emphasized that these drastic structural changes in how music is distributed and consumed are absolutely real and happening right now. On the podcast, she bravely acknowledged that her once unshakable relationship with her listeners had suffered a fundamental shift, stating that her deep musical connection with the wider world had become completely different, and concluding that she essentially had to go through a period of mourning to let go of the past. This deep sense of mourning was not just about the numbers themselves, but about the staggering amount of personal energy Lizzo had poured into the project in a desperate bid to overcome the lack of institutional backing. During her revelatory appearance on the Protopop podcast, she opened up about the grueling reality of trying to salvage her release, revealing that she tried to single-handedly make up for what she felt was extremely limited support from her record label. Instead of relying on a massive, well-funded corporate marketing machine, the superstar took the burden entirely upon her own shoulders, launching a relentless self-promotional campaign across the country. Her intense press run included doing countless interviews with every outlet willing to listen, and she even went so far as to walk the streets hanging up promotional posters herself. A humbling experience for an artist who not long ago was selling out global arenas. She admitted that she had maintained incredibly high hopes for what the team would accomplish during that critical first week of release, but the final commercial reality simply did not match the scale of her dreams. Lizzo described the heartbreaking disconnect, explaining that she felt incredibly excited leading up to the launch because she had successfully met all her personal pre-save goals and hit every single metric that usually guarantees a massive industry hit. When the project finally dropped and the immediate reaction was deafening silence, she was forced into a devastating realization that things were not at all what she thought they would be. While she managed her expectations enough to know it might not be a chaotic, record-breaking phenomenon, she confessed that she never could have anticipated the numbers would drop to such an extreme low. In one of the most poignant moments of the entire broadcast, Lizzo confessed that there was a dark 24-hour period where she allowed her sense of personal success and her entire human worth to be completely dictated by a commercial figure. She described that day as entirely soul-crushing, a painful psychological trap that required her to actively fight to remind herself of who she actually is outside the context of a chart position. During this profound emotional crisis, she found a critical lifeline and reassurance in the form of her close friend and fellow musical icon, Solana Rowe, known globally to fans as Ezza. Expressing immense gratitude for this unexpected support, Lizzo exclaimed, "Thank God for Solana," recounting how Za called her completely out of the blue just to tell her that she was on her mind and that she was sending love. Lizzo recalled her own raw vulnerability in that moment, admitting that she directly asked SZA the terrifying question, "Am I a failure?" To which SZA immediately and passionately responded, "Oh my God, no." Describing Sa as an incredibly sweet and grounding presence during her time of need, Lizzo explained that this conversation allowed her to step back from the edge of despair, leading her to meditate and pray deeply on the entire situation. Through this intense spiritual and emotional reflection, Lizzo arrived at a definitive breakthrough, realizing that tying her self-esteem to a system of numbers is a dangerous path, and reaffirming why she must never judge her ultimate impact or personal success on commercial statistics. This experience reminded her that basing an artist's value on numbers is a fundamentally soul-crushing endeavor, and she resolved to reclaim her narrative as a creator driven by passion rather than metrics. This raw look into her journey offers a rare glimpse into the modern pop trajectory, illustrating how an artist who rose to fame with the monumental explosion of her song Truth Hurts can navigate the harsh volatility of public favor. Her incredible journey from an independent artist struggling to be heard to a multi-Grammy-winning phenomenon who defined the late 2010s cultural landscape serves as a powerful backdrop to her current struggles. It underscores the immense pressure faced by modern musicians, who must not only create compelling art but also maintain an unyielding digital presence, survive intense public scrutiny, and constantly adapt to an industry that changes its rules overnight. This current chapter of her life is far from a definitive end, rather it represents a necessary and deeply human pause. A moment where a global superstar is actively choosing to strip away the corporate PR answers and speak directly to her audience with absolute honesty. By sharing her grief, her disappointments, and her vulnerability, she is redefining what resilience looks like in the modern age, proving that true strength lies not in pretending to be entirely unbothered, but in having the courage to admit when you are hurting. As the full interview releases tomorrow, audiences around the world will have the opportunity to see the complete, unedited conversation and witness an artist stepping into a new era of profound self-awareness and artistic independence. This story matters because it challenges the unrealistic expectations we place on our cultural icons, reminding us that behind every platinum record and viral video is a human being navigating the complex waters of fame, identity, and the universal desire to be understood.